So what matters more, soil or fertilizer? That's the big question, and let's take a look at what happened in this soil wars test, and maybe it'll give us some direction. 5 months ago, I set out on a journey to test 6 different soils from the big box stores that we all either have used or do use to find out where our hard-earned money is best spent. That test actually took me in quite a few different directions, and today this is the post conclusion, because if you watch, a month ago I actually concluded the soil test, and then from there I decided, you know what, let's see what happens if we add nutrients for a month, if these plants wake back up, and how much nutrients actually matter. And it turns out nutrients do matter a lot. Does it outweigh the soil? I'm not sure, but let's stick around and find out. If you watched last month's conclusion video of this, you'll know that some of the plants were in pretty bad shape. They looked really bad, and it was a shock what soil that they were in. At least it was a shock to me. I hope it was to you too. And in the last month, since I concluded the soil portion of this test and started adding nutrients, there have been some big changes. You're gonna wanna see this. And if you haven't kept up on the test throughout this entire summer, I'll link the video at the end, but let me show you which soils we used. Fox Farm Happy Frog, ProMix, Paonia Soil Da Bomb, Fox Farm Ocean Forest, that's a fan favorite, Whitney Farms from Walmart, and Miracle Grow Performance Organics. So at the conclusion of the soil test, Miracle Grow Performance Organics and ProMix were the two that was stomping the competition, with a third place of Whitney Farms, which shocked the heck out of me because I never thought Whitney Farms even had a chance. So what happened once we concluded just the soil with no nutrients and started adding general hydroponic nutrients? Now, I only added them once a week. I didn't do them like I do my normal pepper plants. I did it the way most people would probably do in a regular backyard setting. And you aren't gonna believe the results we have. I will go through and show you a month ago when they had no nutrients all summer long, side by side to what they are today, and you be the judge. But before we do me a favor, and in the comments, tell me which one you think really benefited the most in this last month and will show the most improvement after using nutrients. Now, my thoughts and opinions on this were that Miracle Grow Performance Organics with just the soil portion only did the best. Now, there's lots of other reasons it may or may not be the soil. There's lots of things that play into what makes a plant what it ends up being ultimately. So my thought was start adding the nutrients, and yes, it's going to do better than the rest. But you're really going to be shocked. And the one thing I wanted to find out was, the one plant that was pretty well dead, would it do anything? And if it does, that'll really show us what nutrients can do. All right, without further ado, let's look at the stars of the show. So I'm gonna do the order backwards this time and start with the best performer and work our way to the one that shocked me the absolute most. We had one that turned out to be just twigs at the end of the soil test, and I was so disappointed in which one it was. And I wanted to see that if I started putting nutrients in it, would that plant show life again? So I'm gonna save the best for last. And we're gonna start with Miracle Grow Performance Organics. Yes, Miracle Grow Performance Organics is still the tallest plant, has the most fruits, has the strongest fruits, but not the biggest fruits. I told you in the other videos that Whitney Farms came out swinging, and they really did. They were the underdog in my mind. At least I gave them the underdog tag, because Whitney Farms and Walmart soil just doesn't give a true gardener that warm, fuzzy feeling that it's going to do anything. But it did really well. If you look at what it did at the end of the soil here, it really performed well. It was the number 3 performer overall in just the soil with no nutrients. And it did grow some really nice fruits, but not that many of them. It produced 6 fruits and brought them fully to ripe, and they do look really nice. So I will definitely give applause and tip my hat to Whitney Farms. Fox Farm Ocean Forest was a huge disappointment to me because in my mind, they were actually one of the best. Many years ago, when I switched over to Fox Farms, it made me feel like I was king of the world. I was moving into the expensive soil. I was moving away from the cheap soil. It probably did the same thing for you guys at some point in your gardening journey. Now, if you look here side by side, it did not do well in soil only, but it does look a lot better and actually showed life when we started adding nutrients. And we only got 2 fruits out of the entire season. Paonia Soil is another one that really surprised me. They are local here in Colorado. It's Paonia, Colorado is where it's produced, which is where it gets its name. And this one is called Da Bomb. We all look at little independent manufacturers as being better than the big box stores, but it truly did not show itself that way if you look at these side-by-side images. At the end of the soil only test, it really didn't perform well. And we only have 2 ripe fruits even after adding the nutrients, but it did green up quite a bit and look a whole lot better. So nutrients still did the job. ProMix, on the other hand, truly surprised me. I've used ProMix over the years, but every time I open the ProMix package, it just basically looks like peat moss with a little perlite in there. Now I know there's stuff in there. I'm just saying the impression that it gives. But look at ProMix. It was number 2 overall after the soil only test. And when I say number 2, I mean how tall and how big the plant got. But now is definitely much bushier than even the number 1, Performance Organics. And even though with 16 fruits instead of 20 with Performance Organics, the fruits look much larger and much healthier. So ProMix is gonna be my choice from here on out as far as just an over-the-counter bagged soil. And then we move on to the biggest disappointment of the entire test for me. Fox Farm Happy Frog. Again, I hold Fox Farm up on a pedestal. And again, it may not just be the soil. It could have just been the plant. I mean, all these plants came from a different seed. There's a lot that plays into it. But I will say that the seeds all came from my plant last year that was extremely healthy. So that does help narrow it down, but it's not definitive. Happy Frog for me was the one when I upgraded into a little more expensive soil, because Fox Farm Ocean Forest, it's a little bit more money and you get a little bit less. Happy Frog, you get the 2 cubic feet and it looks really healthy when you take it out of the bag. But if you look at these side-by-side images, at the end of the soil only test, this thing looked like the Charlie Brown Christmas tree. It looked absolutely terrible. Now for a month, it has received my nutrients that I give all my other large plants. And look, life actually did come back. So that does lead me to think that it may not be the plant and it could have been the soil. But the one thing that we can't deny out of all this is after I shut down the soil only portion of the test and started adding nutrients, they all look better. They look a lot greener and a lot more healthy. So that should tell you and I both, definitely use your nutrients. If you've stuck around this long, do me a favor and let me know what soils you would like to see this year's reigning champs go against next year. And I would also like to introduce a second chance pass. So would you like to see Happy Frog or Ocean Forest get another shot, just so we can kind of definitively either close that casket or put it up on a pedestal? You let me know and I'll do it. I had a ton of fun doing these tests, and I hope you enjoyed following along with me. But I will tell you, it was a nail biter for me, because every day I looked at these plants and wanted to put nutrients in them. Because if you know me, you know I put nutrients in everything. So you let me know what brand you want to see next year. We'll start planning next year's competition right now and we'll get it nailed down. We'll duplicate this test next year. We'll add new contenders in the whole thing. And always remember, you don't have to be a prepper to be prepared. And I will see you tomorrow.